Go ahead and get started now. Just want to say thanks to everybody for coming. As you are, I'm looking forward to watching this and seeing, what's new in C4D R17. So just a couple things real quick. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the questions box, and if I know the answer, I will definitely answer it at the time. Otherwise, if I have to defer to Thanasis, then I'll let him go ahead and answer them after we're through here. And also, we are recording this. It'll be up on our YouTube channel within a couple days. So if you, for whatever reason, can't stay for the whole thing or have internet connection issues or whatever, it will be up on our YouTube channel very soon. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just pass it over to Thanasis and we'll get started.
Well, hello everybody. I hope I'm audible. I see 6 out of 101. We have 90-something people missing. Okay, so today I'm going to show you generally Cinema 4D's new features for R17, but I'm going to focus on the take system. So I have a PowerPoint, actually keynote presentation. I don't do these very often, so you feel very privileged about what you're seeing here. So what is the take system? Let me tell you. This is a slide. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how I can actually do this. So the take system is not one thing. It's a series of workflow enhancements that allow users to record and manage different states of a scene in a single document. That includes all object attributes, materials, render settings, procedural file, path creation for render output, global material override, and more. Now, if anything I say here sounds a bit odd, I will show all these things, so do not worry about it. And the take system is deceivingly easy to use. As most things in Cinema 4D, although extremely deep and powerful, and works with any third-party plugin or renderer. If anything, the new take system in Cinema 4D will save you great amounts of time during every stage of your project. So a small overview of what's available through the take system. It's a versioning tool, render layers, a render animation solution using tokens, and this $sign is there on purpose. It helps you do very quick test renders, the final render management. It has a smart global material override, and everything in a single document. So the main principle is that any attribute and parameter that can be keyframed can be taken. And besides the keyframed attributes, and just to make sure that you know what I'm talking about, wherever you see this dot, that means that you can add a keyframe to any of the parameters that have it. All these can be taken and more. So that's not the only thing that can be taken. We go back here. And yeah, we have one more slide that has to do with tokens. We will visit this when we get to that point. So the best way to showcase it is I'm going to show you how it works. So I have this very simple scene. In our everyday work, there's not a single artist out there that does not need iterations of a scene, because either when we're putting our ideas out there and start creating things, we're not sure exactly what we want and want to try different variations of it, or we have someone that defines that for us, a creative director or someone else, that tells us, can I see this in red? Can I see this in blue? Can I see it in green? And that sort of stuff. So I've created this extremely simple scene where I have a red bouncing cube, okay? And the question now is, I can render this, I can do whatever I want with this, but what if I want to see the same thing, but not using a cube, but using a sphere? So I've set up both these here. I will make my sphere visible, my cube invisible, and now I have another version. Now, when you have two versions of something, doing something like this is quite simple. You just turn off one hierarchy, turn on the other, and you can switch between them. But when you have 5 or 6 different variations, this becomes a bit tedious, because every time you need to do a test render or something, you need to turn on a whole lot of hierarchies. And this can become confusing, because that may be coupled with light setups and even colors. So what I'm going to show you here is how we would do this using the take system. And it all begins as following. So here we have our main scene where both objects are visible. It just happens that our sphere is within our cube. That's why we cannot see it, but both are visible. And if you go up here on this little tab that says takes and click on it, you get the take manager. I can right click and undock this. I'm going to have this somewhere here so we can see what's going on. If at any moment you close it, and because it's not here anymore, you can go to Window and just select it here, Take Manager. So this is a Take Manager. This is the interface where we manage all our takes. Now, in previous versions of Cinema 4D, if I wanted to do a final render of both my iterations, what I would do is save a file where the cube is visible, and then save another file where the sphere is visible, and then go to my render queue and open them both up and render them. Now, if I had 4, 5, 6, 10 different iterations of the same scene, I would actually need to go and create 10 copies of my file. Now, that's not too much work, but it definitely adds a few headaches, especially when we are working in a very in a very short deadline. And it can create headaches, because when you have a lot of files, you need a lot of logistics. How does this work? It's a very simple interface, and I'd like to focus on this little panel here. And it says main. This is the main take. The main take, if we do nothing else and we don't use a take system, the main take is what we already know as a Cinema 4D document, nothing else. So at this point, you're seeing one take in this little hierarchical structure, and everything works exactly the same way it used to work in previous versions. So if you don't want to use it, you don't, and it doesn't even interfere with your work. You can't see it anywhere. But I suggest you do. Why? Okay, let's begin. Go to New and say New Take. Automatically, this take is added as a child of the main take. The main take cannot be deleted, cannot be renamed, cannot be moved. So it's always there. The new take, I'm going to double click and name it Red Cube. Fantastic. And you can see that we can activate each one, okay, one at a time. Now that this is activated, we need to tell this take what is different compared to the main take. And the difference in this case is that we want to make our sphere invisible. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. So we need to add the parameter that makes the sphere and the mesh, if we want to, invisible in this take. So I'm going to select the sphere, and we have the traffic lights. The traffic lights reside in the Basic tab, and they're called Visible in Editor and Visible in Renderer. Now, one thing you will notice is that all the animation dots and the attributes are grayed out. This indicates that this specific parameter has been set by the parent take, and that's why we cannot change it. If we do want to change it, we can do it in the following manner. We select the attribute and drag it in here. So now this particular parameter has been added as what we call an override. I'm going to open this up, and you will see that it has the sphere, which attribute group, the basic, and which attribute, the visible in editor. And you will see that suddenly it's editable. I'm going to turn this to off. I'm going to drag the visible in renderer. I'm going to add it here, and automatically Cinema 4D knows where to group it. And I can change it here, or I can change it here, or even if I click on that little, sorry, there you go. If I click on that little thing, I actually see the specific attribute down there. I'll see exactly what I see here. So I've got 3 ways to change it, either in its proper location, you can see it changed, or double click here and change it, so on or off, or go here and make it on or off. So there are quite a few ways to access each parameter. So I want you to take a look at this panel when I'm changing something here. In the main take, it's visible. In the red cube take, it's invisible. So we've created a take where everything else is the same as the main take, except for the sphere that has the visibility in editor and the visibility in renderer off. So now I have my scene playing with only a cube. Okay, let's say that I'm happy with this, and now I want to create the take where my cube is invisible and my sphere is visible. Select the main take. You can right-click, or you can go here as previously. If you right-click, you can say New Take. I'm going to call it Red Sphere. So now, in the red sphere take, you can see that the sphere is visible. You can see that little orange. Oh, I thought the magnification tool worked, but it doesn't. But anyway, you can see it's slightly selected. I'm going to bring this over here so we can see it. There you go. You can see the sphere, because it inherits all the attributes from the main take. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we did before. Select the cube, go to the Basic tab, select both these parameters, and drag them in here. Open this up just to make sure. Oh, I didn't select the other one. I'm dragging it in now. So we have these two parameters, and I can select this and make it off, and then double-click here and make it off by clicking elsewhere. This is what happens. So now we have a take with a red sphere, a take with a red cube, and the main take that has everything in it. Excellent. So we've created successfully two takes. Now, to make it a bit more interesting and show the usefulness of this tool, we're going to ask ourselves the following question. What if we want another iteration where our cube and our spheres are green? So what you do, you go back to your main take, you create a new material, a green one. As you can see, we're using the new color chooser. This is part of R17, sorry, and it has quite a few features. We have some time at the end, although it's quite self-explanatory. You don't need too much information of how it works. Well, it just works. So I've created a green material. I'm going to call it green. And I want to create takes where we have either the cube or the sphere, but it's in its green state. So someone would say, okay, go to the main, create a new take, and in that take, just make this invisible or the other invisible and change the color. We don't actually have to do that. So I'm going to select the take and delete it. I'm going to go to the red cube, and I'm going to make a new child take. If I make a new take, it's going to become a sibling in the same hierarchy. But if I right-click and say new child take, then this take is going to be a child of the previous one. What does this mean? This means that this take will inherit the changes we did on this one. So it will take the two off attributes. I'm going to call this green cube. And the only change we need to do to this is the color. Change the color from red to green. In this case, I want to assign another material to this texture tag. So I need to go to the material attribute, drag it in here, and go over here. And what I can do is just drag the green in here. So now we have a red cube and we have a green cube. As you can see, although this only has one parameter that has changed, because it inherits the red cube's visibility and renderer off for the sphere, it's only going to show the cube. Fantastic. So if I go here and I'll activate it, right-click, new child take, call it green sphere, and I'm going to go to my sphere, drag, not the material. I can drag the material if I want to, but in this case I'm going to drag the parameter I need. And I'm going to go and drag the green. So now we have did I drag it or did I not? I think I did some kind of odd mistake here, and oh yes, I did a mistake. So I dragged the cube again. So all you have to do, I'm very sorry for that, I dragged the cube, I didn't drag the sphere. There you go. So let me delete this, and sorry for the confusion. Go to the sphere. This is what happens when your mind is not here. So I selected this instead of this. So select this and drag the material here. And now in this material, you can drag the green. There you go. So that was user error. But now, it took me about 10 seconds to solve. I have these 4 iterations I need. In this case, I probably did another mistake. I'm very sorry for this, and just forgive me. I, by mistake, changed the material of the original cube on the background. It was my previous error. Instead of selecting this to change the parameter, I actually went here on my main material and changed it. So if you do your changes in these panels, you will not do that mistake. If you start doing half of them here and half of them here, as I just showed you, you may do mistakes. So let's go again. Red cube, green cube, red sphere, green sphere. And again, the reason I did the mistake was I had my main take selected, and I did the change of material on the main take. I changed it right here, and that's not the place to change it. You change it over here. Okay, with that settled, we have our 4 iterations. Red cube. Oh, this is very odd. This is extremely odd here. I'm experiencing something that I've never seen before, and this may be some error because I am using a slightly different version of Cinema 4D while I'm beta testing, and this here shouldn't show anything, and I can't even delete it. Okay, I apologize for this. This is some kind of thing I've never seen before. Okay, now it seems to be working. No, it's not. Okay, so it seems that we've encountered some kind of bug that doesn't exist in the normal version, because I've done this presentation a million times and this never happened. I just hope that you understand how this works, and when there's a bug, there's nothing much I can do. But anyway, I'm going to continue under these circumstances, and hopefully, yeah, there is some kind of bug, and I apologize for that, but there's nothing I can do. And I'll continue with the presentation, and you will understand how it works anyway. And again, I apologize for this, but there's nothing I can do at this point. So we have our 4 takes, although the 2 cubes are green, and I think I'm going to force it to work. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my now red cube, which is green, obviously. I'm going to try a workaround, and maybe this will show you ways to circumvent certain problems when they appear, which is very rare, but it does happen sometimes. I'm actually going to go to the red cube and force the red color. So because I'm having this kind of discrepancy with my main take, I'm actually going to force the red color on my cube. And this has actually solved my problem. Yes, it is a workaround, but sometimes when certain things like these happen, we need to know how to use a workaround to get around them to continue our work. And this works fine as far as I'm concerned. Fantastic. So we have our 4 takes. Now, the question is, how do we handle these takes? How do we actually create 4 different renders for these? Well, in our Take Manager, there's a render menu, and it says render all takes to picture viewer, render mark takes to picture viewer. and then team render all takes a picture viewer, and team render marked takes the picture viewer. How do we do that? Well, this little dot here is the so-called mark. I can render everything. That will render the main take, but I don't want that. But if I mark them, then only these will be rendered if I use any of the two marked menus. So let's see what this does. I'm just going to make sure that in my render settings, I only render, let's go 1 to 10 frames. And here we're going to talk about the naming convention, and I'd like you to focus on this little arrow here, which is a new addition to the interface. And we're going to talk about exactly what that does. So currently with the marked takes, I'm going to say render marked takes to picture viewer. Of course, it's going to tell me it contains dynamic simulations. I've already cached them, as you can see here in this icon. So I'm just going to press OK. And what's going to happen now is, as you can see here, one by one, all my different states of my cubes and spheres are being rendered. So I've got a red cube, I have a green cube, I have a red sphere, and I have a green sphere. So with one button, I've managed to render 4 different animations. Now, this is where the time-saving abilities of the take system become apparent, because if this was a real project with long render times and you had to do quite a few iterations, only at this point alone we would have 4 files. And if for any reason we wanted to change the lighting for the main scene, we'd have to do it 4 times, go to each and every one of our documents and change our cameras or our lights or anything like that. Whereas in our case, all we have to do is create our new light, and just for the fun of it, I'm going to create a light which is going to be, I need to make sure I am in my main take to be able to change attributes, otherwise they grayed out. I'm going to go to my light, make it red. Let's render. Good, it's got a blue, not red. Blue. And now I can change my camera angle. All I have to do is go back to my take manager with my marked takes and say render marked takes to picture viewer. Press OK. And now again we're going to have all the scenes rendering with that change in lighting and camera. So in a day's work, we've saved a few hours just by doing this, which I find, I just wish I had this tool a few years ago. I would have been a couple of years younger at this point. So this is number 1, how the take system works. Now there are a few more things I'm going to tell you. It has an auto take system, it has some grouping capabilities and so forth. Now let's move to the tokens. So what are tokens? In order to manage all these different renders now, we need to have some sort of a naming convention, because as you can see from our picture viewer, everything is called Cube 01A, which is the name of our document. How do we manage to render these things without having this confusion in names where everything is going to have the same name? Enter the tokens. So in R17, for saving frames when you're rendering, we have these so-called tokens. They start with a $sign to indicate that it's a parameter, and PRJ stands for document name. Document name is this thing here. $sign camera, the current camera name, which means it's time to start naming your cameras properly. $sign take, current take name. Pass, pass buffer type name. User pass, user defined pass buffer name. This is huge. It's been requested for a long time, and now it's available. The frame number, the current render settings, the image resolution, the animation range, and the frame rate. These are the important tokens which most people use. Now, mind you, the token system has been added to the Python API, so anyone that does any Python coding can actually create your own tokens, and that's why it's compatible with third-party plugins and renderers because they can implement the token system in their own rendering system. Now let's talk about this user pass for a second. If I go to Cinema 4D and go to my render settings, one of the problems we had is that when we use object buffers, regardless of the name we put here, hello everyone, the name is always OB1 or OB2 or OB3 and so forth. Now, if you go to the save and type here user-defined name layer, this is a new item in the multipass, then this is the name that's going to be used. And this automatically allows us to give specific names to object buffers and say sphere 1, cube 1, and so forth. So this is a huge helper. I'm going to turn this off for now and show you how the token system works. So what I'm going to do is create a ping sequence, go somewhere on my desktop and create a new folder. I'm going to call it today's renders and create. And what I'm going to do here is use this token system to create a path, to create a folder structure that will allow me to know what everything is. So let's go and see how this is going to work. I'm just going to leave the today's presentation. I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3 here and save. So here we have our path. Let's refer to our keynote. So first of all, I want to make sure that I know which document this belongs to. So I'm going to go and replace this with $PRJ. Now at any point, if you're wondering what the name is, you just click here and you can actually add them automatically. So then after the project name, I want to actually use my pass. I'll add a slash here, a backslash, which indicates that the $PRJ, the project name, this is going to be a folder. Everything that has a slash at the end becomes a folder, and anything that is at the end becomes the file name. So I'm going to add another folder here, and so each pass is going to have its own folder. And after that, what I'm going to do is use token. There we go. So sorry, take name. There you go. I'm going to delete this and add the take name. So PRJ, so the folder is going to be named cube01A. Then it's going to create another folder that's going to be called red cube or green cube or red sphere or green sphere slash. And then I'm actually going to use this, go here, copy and paste it. And I'm going to use underscore and where's my frame, current frame, $frame, $frame. So what's going to happen here is that we're going to have the take name, very sorry, underscore, and then the actual frame. Good, I'm happy with this, and let's see what this does. I'm going to go over here and say render mark takes to picture viewer. It's going to tell me about our dynamic simulation. It's going to start rendering. You can see that there are names changing over there. If I go to my desktop while this is rendering, so desktop, today's renders, I have a folder for my project, double click. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 folders, one with each and every one of the names. And within each one, I'm going to have the green cube, which is the name of the take, the frame number, and the frame number again because it gets added automatically anyway. I just want to show you that you can add it. So just like that, we've created a structure for our files. Everything is nicely ordered and ready to be used by our compositors. So that is the take system. Now, there's one of the tokens which may have attracted your attention. Current render settings name. So why would we have the render settings? For anyone that doesn't know, the render settings are these little buggers down here. Now, not a lot of people use these render settings, but I do, and I'll show you what you can do with them in its current state. First of all, we have my render settings, which have all these parameters, 800 by 600, resolutions, frame ranges, and so forth. I can go here and say new child. I'm going to call this OGL for OpenGL. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to keep everything the same. The only difference between this and this is that with this one activated, I'm going to say I don't want the standard or physical, I want the hardware render. Okay, which means if I render out this, it's going to be rendered like this, which is the hardware render, whatever we see here in the viewport. And what I'm going to do, which is very interesting, is I'm going to go to my take, and you will see a very important parameter. First of all, over here we have cameras. If we click on this, default camera or inherit from parent. So if we have different cameras here, we can create takes with exactly the same overrides, the same exact content, but from a different camera point of view. And here we have the render settings, and you can see either inherit from parent or the two available render settings. I just created OGL and the other one that's already there. I'm going to say the green sphere, I want it rendered with OpenGL, or even I can go here and make a copy. So you can drag this and press your command key, make a copy of this, and leave it here and call this green sphere OGL. And make sure that this specific take is rendered with OpenGL. And what's going to happen? We're going to have all our takes rendered with whatever my normal render settings are, whatever is inherited by the main take, which is my render settings. So I'm going to go here and say my main take has these render settings, but this one here, as you can see, it switches to OpenGL. So if I say render mark takes to picture viewer, again, it's going to tell me certain, oh, gave me some error. I didn't even read it. It's good practice to read it sometimes, but anyway, let's see if this is going to work. After this, I'm going to get the green, there you go. So we have all our renders. And now we have OpenGL. And the reason it's jumping up and down is that it was based on date, not on name. There you go. So render settings can be taken, as we say. And this is a huge tool, because this allows you in the same document to create all sorts of things like flipbook animations, quick ones, just to check out your timing without having to do all sorts of different saves. You can incorporate it here, so you can press one button and have one version, a low resolution. You can change the actual resolution of one of your outputs, because maybe a specific version of this with a specific title is aimed at a different resolution, and so forth. So you can kind of get an idea of the power you're getting. Now, a couple of more things about the takes. Now, I showed you how to drag things in here and so forth, but there's a couple more interesting things I really like about the take system, and one of them is the auto take mode. Now, just like the auto keyframing, this doesn't require you to drag things or indicate things. You just go and change the parameter. So let's do something. Let's go here to our green cube version, and I'm going to add a new child take and call it test, just to show you how that works. And what I'm going to do is turn on the auto take, and suddenly all the parameters become blue. Now, the blue parameters mean that they are inherited currently from the previous take, but we can change them and create an override. So let's say we go to our high-res cube. And what am I going to do here with a high-res cube? Let me change something. No, I'm actually going to go to the light and change the color of the light and change it to red. And as you can see, when I changed the color, the parameter turned from blue back to gray, and the override was created. So we have light, general, color, and the color is red. So auto takes is a very fast way, albeit a bit dangerous though, because if you forget it on and you change some parameters, thinking that you're changing the main take, it will start changing them. That's why they made them bright blue, so you don't miss them. So that's what the auto takes do. Okay, let's move on to one more thing about the take system. And I think I have the ideal file for this. I think somewhere in here, somewhere in takes, I have the hooked and simplified no takes. Okay. This is an animation that was given to me by a very good friend, Gunter Nicodim, by Cybertime. This was created in 2012, and if you go on YouTube and you Google Hooked by Cybertime, you will see the full animation. So it's basically an octopus that is trying to give a performance, and it's going to beatbox. So it's all cached animation. So a scene like this presents the following issue. So first of all, even though I have pretty low resolution, it takes a bit of time to render because it has all these ambient occlusion, it has contact shadows, it has blurry reflections, and so forth and so on. So I want to create a situation here where with one button press I can render my octopus separately, my floor with the shadows separately, and so forth. And let me show you how that's done using the take system. So there you go. Let's do the following. Let's open our take manager. So now we have nothing added here. So I'm going to go and say new take, call this octo alone. An octopus alone. So let's find the octopus first of all. I think this is the guy. There you go. So that's the octopus. I only want this guy to be visible in my scene when I render this particular take. Now, how do I do that? As I showed you previously, I can go and select all these, drag them in here, and change the parameter or use the auto take to add some kind of compositing tag and so forth. But what you can actually do, which is quite interesting, is you create a group. So you go here and you add an override group. What an override group allows you to do is you can add any number of objects in here and tell them to do some very specific things we will define over here. So I'm going to call this not visible to camera, just to remind me of what I'm trying to do here. The name is a bit too long, but don't worry. I'm going to select the hook, microphone. I'm going to leave my light set up for now. Camera animation, the stand, and I'm going to drag them all in here. So now if I open this, you'll see all these objects. And let me see what I can do. If you click on this plus, you can add a compositing tag override to all of them. You can see that it has now a T, a compositing override with a T, which is for takes. And then I can select this and say not visible to camera. Once I've done this, actually I'm instructing all the objects inside this hierarchy to not be visible to camera. Let me see if this works if I render. So it's not working right now. And the reason is I only dragged these. I didn't drag the I only dragged the nulls. I didn't drag everything else. So I'm going to middle click, and middle click. When you middle click, you select everything inside. So if you just click here, you just select this. But if you middle click, you select all the children. So I'm going to command middle click. So shift middle click and shift middle click. There you go. It was shift and then drag everything in here. There you go. Now everything is added. Let's see what this does now if we render. So the microphone is going. Okay, we have a floor. We need to add our text. We don't want the text, so just add it. And this is the magic about the override groups, that you create it, you give it the directive you want, the instruction you want, so not visible in camera. And the reason is, the reason I'm using this and not using visibility in editor and renderer, as you can see, these are the same dots as these. The reason I'm not doing that is because I want them to be available for reflections. Okay, I don't want them to be totally invisible from the render. I just don't want them to be visible in the camera. So we've added the text as well. And if you want to see what happens, you can just turn this off as well, just the visibility in the editor. And now we have the floor. The reason why the floor wasn't added is that the floor, I think, belongs to the light setup. It's called the shadow catcher, I think. If I drop it here, there you go. So now we only have our octopus. Excellent. Fantastic. So everything else is the same, but this take only renders the octopus. Now I'm going to create another take where I'm going to render the floor only with the shadows. So I'm going to go to my main, right-click, create a new child take, and call this floor alone. Fantastic. And what I can do to do that, either create a group, so I can go here and add an override group. And just to make sure this happens, just going to do exactly the same thing, compositing tag, not visible in camera, and start dropping things in there. So if we want only the floor, I'm going to drop, so middle click, shift middle click, shift middle click, drag all these little things in here, drag the text, and there's a stand, middle click there and drag it in here. Again, middle click selects the whole hierarchy if you middle click on something. And I think that take is ready. So once you get a handle of this, you can see how easy it is to create these different takes. And because they are available for you, you can actually just start creating, after you've created all your takes, just press the mark takes or all the takes, and it will give you all the available renders to composite this in your favorite compositing program. And you can create a separate pass for ambient occlusion, a separate pass for shadows, and so forth. And that you can do it using materials. Now let me just do that, so just to give you an idea of how you would go about it. Let's say I only wanted the ambient occlusion on the floor. New child take, floor AO, and I think I'm not sure. If I drag these over here, no, it won't work. So too bad. Or I can make a copy of that actually. So I'm going to copy the name. Haha. I'm going to delete this, and I think I can duplicate this. If I drag it and press Command, I can make a duplicate. Double click and name it floor AO. The reason is I want to keep the same override group as this one. So the same override group. The only difference for this is that I'm going to go and change the material for the floor as well. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to create a material that only catches ambient occlusion. I'm going to create it in my main take, so it will be available for the whole file. So just go to Luminance and turn on your ambient occlusion, and let's assume it's good enough. Call it AO. And I'm going to go to my floor AO, find my floor. So where's my light setup? There's a shadow catcher, and this is the material. I'm just going to go here and add it, and go in here and change it for this. Now this has only the ambient occlusion. And just like that, copied it, added one more parameter. Now I have an ambient occlusion pass. One last thing I wanted to show you, which I find very interesting, is the following. What I've created here, which was not given to me originally, is I've created a material. Go back to my main take. I've created the material. I just went to Photoshop, took the actual octopus color, this one here, opened it up in Photoshop, and I created a black and white mask of this. So open window, I can see it a bit bigger. So I just did a levels and made it grayscale. And the reason is I wanted to isolate the octopus circles so I can go and essentially change their color in post. So I've created a luminance material that only has this image. And what I can do now is go to my octo alone, which only renders the octopus. Drag it and press Command to make a copy. Call it octo circle mask. And make sure that besides all these things that have been set in the override group, I'm going to go to the Kraken, as I find in Germany, the octopus is Kraken, or it's a joke, I don't know, and just take this material, drag it in here, and make sure that it takes the mask. Now, what is the issue over here? So number one, I don't want any influence from anything else around. So I'm going to go and, in this one, add that little dot. So nothing in my override group is rendered. Again, that's the equivalent of these dots here. So if I render now, you'll see nothing else will render. I need to get rid of my eyes as well. So go drop this eye in the group, that eye in the group, render. Fantastic. The other thing I want to do is the following. First of all, I think I need to get rid of my backgrounds and my light setups and all that. So I'm going to add the light setup in here as well. Render. Haha, fantastic. And one last thing. I promise you this is the last thing. Because the whole animation is being rendered with the physical renderer, because it's for quality and speed. But in this case, I don't want the physical renderer because it's a mask. The Octus Circle mask is a mask. I just want it to render with my standard renderer. So what do? Well, I go to Render, make a new child, call it Standard Fast, and with this selected, turn off all these multipasses, go to my standard. I can change my anti-aliasing to something maybe a bit less, 1 and 2, and make sure, so the main take has this render, but the Octo Circle to mask has this render, and I'm going to change it here, Standard Fast. So everything else renders with the main, good, except for this, that now renders blazingly fast in a split second. So then I can just mark my takes and do all my renders. So this pretty much summarizes the basic principle around the take system. And don't forget that everything you've seen here resides in the same scene. If there's one thing I would say that will add a bit of complication in your work is don't forget that the main take contains everything. What you cannot do with the take system is add objects. You can't say, I want the main take to have a sphere and I want to create a cube on the floor alone take. You cannot do that. The document always contains exactly the same objects and they're all contained in the main take. What you can change is attributes. So by hiding things, showing things, activating things and deactivating, because this activation, deactivation is a animatable parameter. It's over here, enabled and disabled, which means that you can actually take this and many other things. So once you get used to the fact that if you use the takes, you need to make sure that you create all your objects, although it's going to be obvious when you try to create something here, you will see that the parameters are grayed out. So just click here and go and do whatever you want to do. It's as simple as that. Now we're not done quite yet, because besides the take system, there are a few more things that complement the take system. I'm going to go and bring it up again. I have this bad habit of closing windows I think I'm not going to use, but that's not the case always. So let me take you here to the render settings. And maybe we can use another file. No, I'm going to use the same file. I'm getting used to this octopus. It's kind of, I'm liking it. And if we go to, let me close all these. You will see down here there's a new attribute added in the tabs on the left. It's called Material Override, and you can activate it. What does this do? So I'm going to treat this like a normal document. Forget the takes for now. I'm rendering here. And ooh, wait a minute. What just happened here? If I turn it off, you'll see that everything renders properly. But if I turn it on, everything renders white. Okay, let me show you, let me explain what the material override is. When you turn it on, and this is the attributes panel for it, I'm going to turn all these off and render again. You will see that every material in the scene gets exchanged for one default Cinema 4D material. And the default Cinema 4D material is, double-click, a gray material. And by applying the material override, no other materials in the scene will be rendered. But you can actually change that. Number one, I can take, let me create this override 01. I'm going to make it slightly blue. And just because I want to, I'm going to go to the diffuse channel and add an ambient occlusion and apply it to all the channels. I'm going to drag this and put it in here in the custom material override. Now I'm going to render. Now all materials get exchanged for this material. What this allows us to do is, if we create a very basic material, white for example, it can allow us to calibrate our lighting, because sometimes with all the reflections and refractions and all that, we can't really figure out how our lighting is working. So by overriding all the materials, we are allowed to do certain, let's say, calibration shots, or even create our own passes that do something very specific. Now the good thing about it is that because all these here, diffuse, color, luminance, transparency, reflection, bump, normal, alpha, and displacement, are material parameters, sometimes we have displacement, for example, which is part or normal maps, or alphas for transparencies and so forth, which we want to keep, because otherwise we will not be able to see all the details of our object. So currently I've turned on normal and displacement. I'm going to render, and what happens is that, yes, the material overrides everything, but it doesn't affect the displacements and the normal maps of all the materials. By default, and I'm going to shift and click and select all these, right click and reset to default. By default, I don't know if you knew that you can do it, but for most parameters you can right click and reset to default. Transparency, bump, normal, alpha, and displacement are preserved. Now, one other thing is that we can exclude certain materials from this override. Let's assume that I wanted the Hooked 2012 by Cybertime not to become gray or blue or whatever, because in this case now we've got our blue override. Just to make it obvious, I'm going to make it pinkish red, but I'm going to exclude the text. So you drag the material, not the object, the material you want to exclude from the overriding, and you render, and you will see that everything is going to be this color except for this. Now if you, all these little dots you may be seeing is because I have a very low, very low quality and high shading error. If I change these parameters, these things will not be visible, but at this moment I just want it to render fast, so don't worry about these. But anyway, that was the override. And the good thing is that you can create your own custom passes by using the override, because you can create different render settings with different material overrides and create different takes with a different render setting in them, and have exactly the same scene rendered in different homogeneous colors or different override materials. Or maybe you want to create a combination of ambient occlusion and soft shadow pass and stuff like that. Well, that's what you can do by using the material override together with the take system. So I think we're approaching the end of the presentation. I hope I've been able to show you a glimpse of what is possible, the time-saving capabilities of the take system. If you go, I don't know if you have access to Cineversity. If you do, even if you don't, go sign up, and there are a lot of free videos, including the ones that showcase a take system. You can watch this presentation again from me, which I gave at SIGGRAPH 2015 in August. And you can get a better idea how you can use it. But from a man that has been in production for, well, let's say since 1987, think that's a long time servicing clients and creating visuals. One thing I do know is that by using this system, you will save time, enormous amounts of time. So if anyone has any questions, I'm going to open up this little panel and see if there are any questions, or I don't know if you can raise your hands or do that kind of stuff. I have no idea how this works. But please, if anyone wants to ask something, I'll be more than happy to reply.
I'm just going to also, there's a little poll that I have, just trying to see which version of Cinema 4D that you guys are all using. So I'm going to launch that right now. So just select that just so I can get an idea of what everyone out there is using. I'm sure it's mostly Studio, I'm guessing, but we'll see.
Oh, and again, I have to apologize for that little minor issue with that red and green and so forth. I'm going to contact Maxon and see if that's been fixed, because I'm using the one version very close to the one that was released, but certain bugs have been fixed since then. Anyway, again, I apologize, but these things do happen, and workarounds are always welcome.
Did you see that question about, is Houdini engine included in R17?
Yes, it is. But one thing I want to make absolutely clear, I can't see any questions. The question is, so answered questions. Yeah, anyway, there's a bit of a misunderstanding. The Houdini engine itself is not a Maxon product. The Houdini engine is a product of side effects, and it's sold. It has nothing to do with Maxon. What Maxon has done is create the plugin, and it offers the plugin as a part of Cinema 4D now. So if you own any version of Houdini which is compatible to the engine, I think it was Houdini 12, that's when they introduced the Houdini engine, you can actually go to side effects and ask them for all these details. The Houdini engine is built in Cinema 4D and does fantastic things. If you go to the Maxon website, Maxon YouTube channel, so go to youtube.com, just search for Maxon, find the Maxon with a little round logo, and go to the playlists, and there's one that talks about the Houdini engine. I've done a series of videos there that talk about the licensing. It has charts, it has all that. And the other thing you can do is go to the sideeffects.com website, sign up to the forum, and there's a specific sub-forum, Cinema 4D Houdini engine, which I'm basically doing technical support there, and you will find all the answers you need. But yes, the plugin is included, but the engine itself is a product of a third-party company, so you need to purchase it or get a trial license. Side Effects is giving out some trial licenses, I think, for 30 or 45 days of the full Houdini engine and Houdini FX. Just go to sideeffects.com, and so it's SIDEFX.com. Any other questions?
It doesn't look like it at this point. Give everybody a couple seconds here to type any questions, but otherwise it doesn't sound like anybody has any.
And let's just hope there wasn't a total internet blackout for everyone else and I wasn't talking to myself.
Yeah.
That's always my biggest fear with all these online webinars and lessons and all that, is that, has anyone been listening for the last half hour?
I have at least.
Okay.
You're not alone.
Thank you. I feel much better now.
All right. Well, it looks like nobody has any questions, so I guess of course, if you do think of something, I'm sure you can always email me, and I can find out the answer, or you can email Thanasis directly, I'm sure. or like he said, the answers are probably in a video on
Well, if you,
Cineversity.
yeah, if you email me directly, I mean, yeah, but I'd rather not have that. I am regular on the side effects forum and on CG Society, CG Talk, and you can ask it on the Cineversity forums. So there are so many places you can actually ask, and which I hang out anyway, especially the side effects forum. So anything you need, just go there, ask any questions. If you need to ask questions about Cinema 4D in particular, yeah, there are so many outlets for that. And CG Society, in my view, is the #1 gathering of Cinema 4D users, and you will get a very good answer if you have any questions.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this will be put on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube. It's Motion Media LLC. I think it's just youtube.com/Motion Media LLC. But I'll send out an email as well.
Yeah, just edit out that thing, thing with a cube.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Bye.